Hello and welcome to my first podcast episode today. My name, Max Reck, and today is the day. So, what do I want to say? A couple of months ago, probably half a year ago, I started to listen to a lot of different podcasts. So, there were podcasts about people sharing their stories in their life, what they have been through, what they have learned, what they have developed. A lot of um, podcasts about mindset, how to get in a better mindset, how to believe that you can achieve things you actually want to achieve. And one of my favorite podcasts as well was about smart reading. So, how to increase your reading speed while still keep more of what you read. Maybe some of you also have that difficulty I had before. You read a book, you read to the first page, some lines while you're reading, your mind goes somewhere else, you think of other topics, then you finish the page, you turn the page, you go to the next page, and then what do I read here? What's that about? You have to go back, read it again. So that's where I started to, go into smart reading, to learn how to keep the things I just read and be more focused on what I read. But I also started learning a little of memory techniques, so remember numbers, remember names. Um, I used to have that difficulties when I parked my car somewhere in a multi-level car park. I had to write down the level on my phone or on a piece of paper where my car was parked. Um, so that's the kind of podcast I started to listen to. And then being in a couple of months in such a kind of topic and listening about podcasts, I was really fascinated about what people's story they had to share. So I started to set my own goals, and one of my goals then, probably back in August or maybe September, was to create my own podcast. So I set my goal for 31st of December this year to have my first podcast episode done. So today is the 28th of December, so I'm quite last minute. My goal changed a little bit, so the goal was to have my podcast episode recorded, and that changed a little bit now. So I thought I gotta focus on this day, do my first podcast episode today on the 28th of December, so I can get everything, listen to it myself first and then get it published, and hopefully it's gonna be out um 30th or 31st when you can listening to it. So what is the podcast about? Well, mostly it will be about my life, my story, where perhaps everything started, what I have experienced during those years, and well, where I want to go, and maybe you find yourself in such stories, and maybe I'll be able to assist you in any help and guide you through how I passed through that life. So if we go back, maybe in sixth or seventh grade in my life, I was really probably way below average student. My grades well, weren't great, would be way too good put, but nevertheless, my mathematics skills were always on point. So I had really, really bad grades in school in like German, English, physics, whatever topic we had, you name it, I was bad in it. So apart from math, somehow I had fun doing it. I was able to help other classmates, help them to become better in mathematics, and there was some point of joy I had during my school period. Then I probably ninth grade, I think it was ninth grade, just before, well, in Germany, we had to get our head around what we want to do, if we want to go into apprenticeship, if you want to. Well, I wasn't really in a further educated school, so studying wasn't a point or option for me back then. So I got a new teacher that year, somehow a really young teacher I connected with, and my grades all of a sudden went up a lot. So I got my English grades up, where at a point where I was able to apply for a further school, so a further education school, where I could improve my skill in different areas. And I'm not really sure how, but I was really late when I applied for the school. Many other friends um, couldn't get into that school, and I thought, well, I was late anyway, but we need some luck at some point to get to some points in our life. So I made it into that school. It was a economic school, and I got a few new topics. So English was a much more difficult than I thought at the point at the time, and I also got more economic classes, public economics, accounting, business, and I also enjoyed accounting. Maybe it was from the mathematics I like to enjoy, and everything kind of made sense at the time. Um, but nevertheless, I was still, well, probably not that much interested in school, so I wasn't really putting that much attention into it as I would do right now when I'm interested in a topic and I want to learn it. So um, probably, man, kind of, let's say just before I finished with my leaving certs in that school, I started to look around for apprenticeships. So in Germany, we have kind of apprenticeship after school if we don't study directly. So where you go into an office or other work environment, and then you do 4 days, 3 days of work experience in that office, in that warehouse, whatever kind of area work in. For me, it was accounting department then, and another 1 or 2 days a week you go in school and kind of improve your theoretical skills, which you need for that kind of apprenticeship you do. So for me, I started with a company called GameStop at the time, but it was in July, so the apprenticeship usually starts in September. I started perhaps probably earlier, it was even May that year. I was how old was I? I was 17, something like that, maybe younger. I was 16 at the time, so I started I had got to a closing point of my driving license, so I looked for a part-time job to actually pay off my driving license fees. In Germany, they're much more expensive than they are in other countries. So I worked there probably what it was maybe 10 hours a week, maybe some weeks more, some weeks less. During school holidays, I worked there even full days. And then July, there wasn't much school days left. We had our exams done. I increased the hours in that company, and yeah, at some point I was looking for apprenticeship to find in some companies. I was really interested in IT topics at the time, so I looked um, to find yeah, a company, a place where I could combine my economics, accounting skills with the IT side of things, which you can imagine they're quite different and contrast topics to combine. So it was really hard to find anything. But while I was working in GameStop, um, I was doing like the normal temp stuff, sorting papers, filing papers and invoices, bringing folders into like an archive, things like that, and doing some reconciliations on files that switched to another ERP system at the time, and then um, I really connected with the HR manager at the time, and then they asked me what I'm gonna do after my school finished. And I'm like, well, I have a few applications out. I'm not really sure. And then they said like, you want to work for us? And then, well, I said, you have only apprenticeships in stores. I don't really want to go into stores and stand in stores every day, work with customers and all that kind of things. It was something which didn't interest me at the time. I think it's quite interesting now. At a later point in my life, it was more important to me as well, but at the time wasn't really of any interest to me. So what they said then was, well, you can start with the accounting team. We can do an apprenticeship role here in the accounting team. Just have to apply and have an interview, and we will see how it goes. So I applied for it, put out my papers, and well, I kept working. And at the time, I wasn't 18, so I wasn't able to decide for myself if I could be there. So I had my first interview with finance director at the time and the HR manager. And it was actually funny because at the time I was working there kind of full time between school and starting my apprenticeship. So um, they said, "Well, are you ready? Can we do the interview now?" And they're like, "Yeah, it's around lunchtime, but yeah, I have time. We can do it." And "You're hungry?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." So we actually went to McDonald's and had my interview for well, my first job or my first apprenticeship in McDonald's. So we get burgers, chips, and sat at McDonald's, talked about my school time and um, what the job role would be, what the apprenticeship means, and well, that was kind of my interview, how I got the apprenticeship with GameStop, and then I think a week later or so, my dad came in and we signed the papers and the contract, and we also decided that it was July at the time that I'm going to work through August and start the apprenticeship in September. So we did that. I had the possibility to go through many different departments, purchasing, um, marketing, the IT department where I spent a lot of time in the beginning, accounting, logistics, the stores, HR, loss prevention, all different areas. And I'd say halfway through my, well, not halfway through actually, because in the beginning I got the topic of doing the day end reports of the stores, and there were 200 stores at the time, so I worked really long hours to get everything done. I kind of, it's always the person, if I do something, I want to have it perfectly done, and I had a huge backlog of work at the time. So um, I think after like 3 months or so, when I had my probation period, I think it was actually decided that we kind of um, yeah switch my or increase my probation period from like 3 months to 6 months because of the yeah backlog of work I had. Um, Today I kind of know it wasn't really um, bad intention or so from my bosses at the time. It was more I tried to do everything perfect. I tried to check every little point on a receipt or something like that, and it took me a really long time. It was a lot of work as well to put in. But what I tried to say to you with that is, if you focus on every little detail of something before you actually finish it and move on to the next point, you kind of be stuck in something you don't ever will be able to perfect. So I put that podcast episode to another day, to the next day for, I don't know, 3 months or so, just to know if putting it down or say like, oh, well, no, I have to do a cover for the podcast first, or I have to do notes or script something or whatever. But if you try to do something perfect, you kind of bit stuck in the process to make it perfect, and then you get a little bit done, and then you're like, oh no, I don't like it, I have to redo it again. But if you start, do it, leave it that way, and then maybe revisit it to a later stage, keep working on it. Be happy with what you achieved, and um, keep working what you can achieve. So that's my main topic of this first podcast episode. So thank you for listening in, and always make sure in your life that you get the things done and started you really want to do, and they don't have to be perfect at first. You can Perfection is a work in progress and a process. You can always working on it, and if something is perfect right now to you, tomorrow it might still have room for improvement. So if you keep working on yourself, you will get closer to perfection every day. Thank you for listening in, and I hope to see you here soon again. Thank you. Bye.